My name is Maya Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and I walked into my little brother's wedding believing I had finally earned one peaceful seat in a room full of people who never knew what it cost to get him there. I did not come looking for praise. I did not come expecting speeches about the years I worked until my feet went numb, or the nights I came home too tired to eat because every spare dollar had gone toward his future. I came because the boy I helped raise was becoming a husband, and for one day, I wanted to feel proud, without having to defend why I belonged. The country club was polished, expensive, and quiet in the way rich rooms always are, as if even the air had been trained not to make mistakes. I found my table near the edge of the reception hall, smiled at the white flowers, reached for the name card beside my plate, and then my entire body went cold. It did not say, sister of the groom. It did not say family. It said, poor uneducated sister, living off her brother. For a second, I thought I had read it wrong. Then the laughter started. Not from strangers who were confused, but from people who had clearly been waiting for me to see it. The bride's family covered their mouths, leaned into each other, and laughed like my humiliation was part of the entertainment. I looked at my little brother across the room, and all I could think was, not today. I would not ruin his wedding. I would swallow the shame, place the card down, and leave quietly. But before I could take one step, he caught my hand, stood so fast his chair scraped against the floor, and looked straight at his future father-in-law. His voice was calm, but it cut through the whole room when he said, "You just made the most expensive mistake of your life. Before I tell you what happened after that, tell me what the weather is like where you are, and whether it matches the kind of mood this story just put you in." The room went silent so fast it felt like someone had cut the music with a knife. My little brother was still holding my hand, and every person who had laughed suddenly looked like they had forgotten how to breathe. I could feel the place card pressing against my fingers, that ugly sentence sitting there in black ink like proof that cruelty had been planned, printed, approved, and placed carefully beside my plate. This was not a mistake. Mistakes do not come in matching calligraphy. Mistakes do not sit at a formal dinner table waiting for one specific person to find them. Across the room, the bride's father slowly stood up. I had not known his name when I walked in. To me, he had only been the wealthy man smiling in photographs, the man whose daughter my brother loved, the man everyone seemed nervous to impress. But now every eye in that country club turned toward him, as if he owned not just the room, but the right to decide what counted as disrespect. He adjusted his jacket, looked at my brother, and gave a small laugh. "Sit down," he said. "You're embarrassing yourself." My brother did not move. "Explain the card." The man glanced at it like he had barely noticed it before, which was impossible. "It was a joke," he said. "A light joke. Your sister looks old enough to handle one." A few people shifted in their seats, but nobody spoke. That was the moment I understood something painful. Some people had laughed because they thought it was funny. Others had laughed because they were afraid not to. And the rest had stayed quiet because silence is the easiest costume for cowardice. I kept my voice steady and asked, "If it was just a joke, why was I the punchline?" His smile thinned. "Because people like you take everything personally." My brother's hand tightened around mine, but I did not let him step forward. "Not yet." The man looked at him and said, "You should be very careful tonight. A young man in your position should understand the value of good connections." Then he nodded toward the chandeliers, the flowers, the expensive room, as if all of it was evidence in a trial only he had the power to judge. "You have been welcomed into a family that can open doors you never would have reached alone." I heard the insult clearly. So did my brother. I said, "He reached every door because he worked for it." The man looked at me with open amusement. "And you helped, I'm sure. Everyone has a sad story, but sacrifice does not make someone educated. It does not make someone refined. It certainly does not make someone equal." A quiet gasp came from somewhere near the head table. My face burned, but I refused to look down. I thought about the years I had worked while other people slept. I thought about filling out financial aid forms at midnight, packing my brother's lunches before sunrise, telling him I had already eaten when there was only enough food for one of us. I thought about the first time he got accepted into a summer program and cried because he thought we could not afford the bus fare. I thought about selling my mother's bracelet and pretending I had misplaced it because I did not want him to know what his chance had cost me. I said, "I never came here asking to be equal to your money. I came here as family." He leaned closer, still smiling. "Family is not a word you use to force your way into rooms you do not belong in." My brother finally let go of my hand and stepped beside me. His voice was quiet, but every table heard it. "She belongs anywhere I stand." The man's expression changed then. Not much, but enough. The joke was over, and the punishment was beginning. He pulled out his phone and said, "Maybe we should revisit a few arrangements before this marriage becomes legally complicated." The bride's mother whispered his name sharply, but he ignored her. He looked at my brother and continued, "Job offers can be reconsidered. Grants can be delayed. Promises can be paused. You may think pride is free, but you are about to learn it has a price." My brother stared at him and said, "Thank you." The man blinked. "For what?" My brother answered, "For saying all of that in front of witnesses." For the first time that night, the bride's father stopped smiling. The room had changed. It was no longer a room laughing at a poor sister. It was a room watching a powerful man reveal that his kindness had always been conditional, and his generosity had always come with a leash. Until that moment, the bride had stood frozen near the head table, pale beneath the soft glow of the reception lights. She looked less like a woman enjoying her wedding, and more like someone watching the floor crack open between the life she had been promised and the truth standing in front of her. The flowers behind her were perfect. Her dress was perfect. The photographs being taken from the side of the room were probably perfect too, but her face was not. Her face showed the first real thing I had seen from that side of the family all night. Her father turned toward her with a warning in his eyes, the kind of look that tells a child to remember who pays for everything. "Stay out of this," he said. But she did not stay out of it. She walked toward my brother first, not her father, and that small choice changed the whole room. "Did you know about the card?" my brother asked her. His voice broke just enough for me to hear the pain beneath the anger. She shook her head quickly. "No, I swear I didn't." Then she looked at me. "I am so sorry." I wanted to believe her. I did. But shame has a way of making every apology sound late. Before I could answer, her father laughed under his breath. "Do not apologize for people who are looking for offense." She turned on him. "That was not offense. That was humiliation." Her mother rushed forward, smiling tightly at the guests, as if a smile could cover a wound this deep. "Sweetheart, not here. There are people watching." The bride looked around the room, and for the first time, I think she really saw what kind of people were watching. Some were embarrassed. Some were entertained. Some were already whispering into their phones. A few had the guilty expression of people who wished they could go back 10 minutes and choose a better reaction. She raised her chin and said, "Good. Let them watch." Her father's face hardened. "You are emotional." She answered, "No. I am finally awake." That sentence landed harder than a shout. I saw my brother look at her with hope and fear fighting across his face. She turned to me again and said, "He told me what you did for him. He told me you gave up college. He told me you worked 2 jobs. He told me you raised him when both of you were still kids." I believed him, but I don't think I understood it until right now. Her father snapped, "You understood the sentimental version." She faced him fully then. "What version would you prefer? The one where a young woman lost her parents and still kept her brother fed? The one where she built his future while everyone else built their image? Or the one where you thought the right way to welcome her was to mock her in front of a room full of strangers?" Her mother whispered, "Please stop." But the bride did not stop. My brother asked, "Did you know your father wanted control over our accounts after the wedding?" Her eyes widened. Her father said, "It was a precaution." She looked sick. A precaution against what? My husband loving his sister? My marriage having a past you can't purchase? He took a step toward her. "You are too young to understand how people attach themselves to opportunity." The bride's eyes filled, but she did not cry. "No, Dad, I understand perfectly. You think love is only safe when you can audit it." The room shifted then. People who had laughed at me minutes earlier now looked uncomfortable, not because they had suddenly grown hearts, but because cruelty had stopped looking safe. Reputation had entered the room, and reputation frightened them more than morality. The bride stepped beside my brother and took his hand. "If you insult her again," she told her father, "I will walk out of my own wedding." He stared at her like he had never imagined she could choose anyone over him. "You would throw away your family over this?" She answered, "No. You are the one throwing it away." My brother looked at me, and I could see the boy I had raised inside the man he had become. Proud, hurt, shaking with restraint. I wanted to tell him to stop. I wanted to protect him like I always had. But for once, he was protecting me. And the woman he was marrying was finally proving she understood what that protection meant. The bride's father leaned closer to his daughter and said, very softly, "You have no idea what loyalty to these people will cost you." She did not look away. "Then maybe it is time I find out." His jaw tightened, and in that moment, I knew he had stopped seeing her as his daughter and started seeing her as property slipping out of his hands. The wedding should have been saved by an apology. That was all it would have taken. One honest sentence. One moment of humility. One admission that the card was cruel and that my place in my brother's life was not something to be mocked. But powerful men rarely apologize when they still believe punishment is available. The bride's father straightened his shoulders, looked across the room, and gave the kind of calm smile that made my stomach turn cold. "Very touching," he said. "But this is not a courtroom, and I am not on trial." My brother answered, "No, you're just making yourself look guilty." That was when the man's mask slipped. Not completely, but enough. His face stayed controlled, but his eyes changed. They went flat and sharp, like he had stopped speaking to human beings and started managing a problem. He lifted his phone again and made no effort to hide the call this time. "Daniel," he said when someone answered, "I need you to call Harrington and Vale tonight. Tell them our hotel rebrand is under review if they continue with the new hire from the Bennett family." My brother went still. The bride grabbed her father's arm. "What are you doing?" He covered the phone and said, "Teaching consequences." Then he returned to the call. "Also, contact the foundation office. The mobile skills program connected to Maya Bennett should be paused until further notice. I will not have my name attached to people who create public scenes for sympathy." For a moment, I could not breathe. The job offer was one thing. It was cruel, but it was aimed at my brother. The grant was different. That project was not about me. For 2 years, I had been trying to build a mobile community program for teenagers who needed resume help, interview practice, GED support, and basic digital skills. Kids who were smart but unseen. Kids whose parents worked nights. Kids who had no one to explain how to write a cover letter or sit through a mock interview without feeling ashamed of their clothes. Kids like my brother had once been. He had found the one thing in my life that still felt bigger than survival, and he was trying to crush it because I had embarrassed him by existing. My brother moved so fast 2 of his friends had to catch him. "Let go of me," he said, his voice shaking. I stepped in front of him. "No." He looked at me like I had betrayed him. I lowered my voice. "Do not let him turn your love into his evidence." That stopped him. I knew exactly what the bride's father wanted. He wanted my brother angry. He wanted one shove, one threat, one ugly moment he could point to later and say, "See, this is what kind of family they are." The bride stepped between her father and us. "Hang up." Her father looked at her as if she were a child interrupting a business meeting. "Move," she said. "Hang up, or I leave." Her mother covered her mouth. The room went electric. Every guest understood the stakes now. This was not a family argument anymore. This was a man using money like a weapon in public, and his own daughter was standing in front of the blade. He lowered the phone slowly, but his eyes stayed cold. "You think walking out makes you brave?" he asked her. "No," she said. "Standing here does." He looked at my brother. "This is what your family brings. Chaos, emotion, poverty dressed up as virtue." My brother answered, "And this is what yours brings. Control dressed up as protection." The bride's father smiled, but there was nothing human in it. "Enjoy your little victory tonight. By tomorrow morning you will understand the difference between pride and power." Then he walked out of the reception hall. Not loudly, not dramatically. He left with the calm of a man who believed the real damage had already been ordered. The wedding continued after that, but only in the way a broken clock still shows a number. People clapped at the wrong moments. The cake was cut. The music restarted. Toasts were given by people who avoided saying anything true. Some guests came up to me and whispered that they were sorry, but whispers after laughter do not heal much. I stood near the back and watched my brother hold his bride's hands while both of them looked like they had aged 10 years in 1 hour. I wanted the night to end. I wanted to believe the worst had already happened. But deep inside, I knew the man who had walked out was not finished. Men like him do not leave because they are defeated. They leave because they want privacy for the next attack. And that night, while everyone pretended to celebrate, I felt the future tightening around us like a trap. The next morning, my phone rang before the sun had fully risen. I knew who it was before I looked. My brother's name lit up the screen, and when I answered, he did not say hello. He just said, "He did it." His voice sounded rough, like he had spent the whole night trying not to break something. I sat up in bed. "The offer?" There was a pause. "Gone." Harrington and Vale sent an email at 6:20. They said they decided to move in another direction. Clara called someone she knows from the studio. Her father spoke to one of their investors last night. I closed my eyes. I was not surprised, but that did not make it hurt less. My brother had built that portfolio piece by piece while working part-time, studying late, and teaching himself software on an old laptop that overheated if he opened too many tabs. That offer had not been charity. It had been earned. It had been the first time I had seen him look at his future without flinching. "And there's more," he said. I already knew. I opened my email while he stayed on the line. There it was. A message from the foundation with polished language and empty regret. My application for the Second Chance Skills van had been postponed pending further review. I stared at those words until they blurred. Pending further review meant buried. It meant someone had called. It meant a man with too much money had decided that teenagers who needed help writing resumes should pay for his wounded pride. "Maya," my brother said, "say something." I took a slow breath. "I'm thinking." That was always what scared people about me. I did not scream when I was truly angry. I got quiet. An hour later, the bride arrived at my apartment wearing jeans, sneakers, and no makeup. Without the gown, without the diamonds, without the perfect hair, she looked younger and more tired, but also more real. My brother came with her, pacing like anger was the only thing keeping him standing. She sat at my small kitchen table and placed her phone in front of me. "There's something you need to see." The first thing was an email chain from the wedding planner. My stomach tightened when I saw the attachment. The place cards had not been a mistake. The insulting line had been submitted by her father's assistant 3 days before the wedding. There were even notes about making sure it was placed at my seat before guest arrival. Not near my seat. At my seat. As if my humiliation had been part of the seating chart. My brother whispered, "He planned it." The bride nodded, tears in her eyes. "I didn't know. I need you to believe that." I looked at her for a long second. then nodded once. I believe you. She swallowed hard and opened a voice memo. My cousin sent me this last night. She was scared to say anything before, but after what happened, she couldn't stay quiet. The recording played. Her father's voice filled my kitchen, relaxed and amused. The sister is the problem, he said. She has that poor woman martyr story. People like that turn sacrifice into control. If he marries into this family, he will need to learn where loyalty belongs. A man in the background asked, and if he doesn't? Her father laughed. Then we teach him scarcity. My brother stopped pacing. His face went completely still, which scared me more than anger. The bride opened another clip. Her father again, this time sharper. Poor people always make survival sound holy. Usually it is just failure with better storytelling. I set the phone down. My hands were steady now. That surprised me. The words hurt, but they also clarified everything. Men like him survived because they kept their cruelty private and their manners public. Now, for the first time, both versions of him were sitting on my kitchen table. My brother said, I'm posting it. Right now. No, I said. He stared at me. No? Not yet. The bride looked confused. He already destroyed your project. I nodded. And if we post now, he will say we are emotional, bitter, unstable. He will say you turned against him because your wedding was ruined. He will say I am using my brother for sympathy. He knows how to survive a scandal if it looks messy. My brother sat down slowly. So what do we do? I looked at the bride. You ask him for a family meeting. Tell him you want peace. Tell him you want to understand. Let him think he still has control. Her eyes changed as she understood. You want to give him a chance to apologize? Yes, I said. And if he refuses, I want him to prove exactly who he is without a ballroom full of people protecting him. My brother looked from her to me, and a hard calm settled over his face. So we let him talk. I nodded. Men like him always do. Before they left, the bride looked around my apartment, at the old cabinets, the chip table, the stack of program flyers for the skills van, and she whispered, he has no idea who he is fighting. I almost smiled. No, I said. He thinks he is fighting poverty. He is fighting proof. The meeting was set for the following Saturday at the Ashford House in Westchester. Calling it a house felt dishonest. It was a gated estate with stone pillars, black iron fencing, and windows so tall they looked less like openings and more like warnings. Everything about the place said wealth, but nothing about it said home. As we drove through the gate, my brother reached for my hand the way he had at the wedding. This time, I squeezed his first. The bride sat beside him, quiet but steady. She had lost her father's money, her apartment transfer, and the safety net she had been raised to trust. Yet somehow she looked stronger than she had in the ballroom. Before we got out of the car, she whispered, if he apologizes, I want this to end. I said, so do I. And I meant it. Revenge was not the goal. Truth was. But I had learned a long time ago that truth needs witnesses, because people with power love calling pain a misunderstanding. We walked into a formal sitting room where her father waited with her mother and a family attorney. He did not stand when we entered. Of course he did not. Men like him used chairs like thrones. The room smelled like leather, old money, and flowers that had probably been replaced before they had time to wilt. Let's be efficient, he said. I assume you are here because reality has arrived. My brother's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. I sat across from him. We are here because your daughter asked for one private conversation before this becomes public. He smiled. Public? That sounds like a threat. No, I said. It is a choice. You can admit what you did, stop interfering with his job, restore the foundation review, and apologize for humiliating me at the wedding. Or, you can keep pretending cruelty is leadership. His wife, sitting stiffly beside him, looked down at her hands. The bride's father leaned back. You people always need a speech. My brother finally spoke. You people? The man shrugged. People who confuse struggle with character. People who believe surviving hardship entitles them to respect. I felt my brother shift beside me, but I kept my eyes on the man across the room. Respect is not something poverty cancels. He laughed softly. Poverty does not cancel respect. Behavior does. Your brother stopped his own wedding because you were offended by a joke. You turned my daughter against her family. And now you sit in my house making demands as if you have leverage. The bride stood. Dad, stop. He looked at her. No. You need to hear this clearly. Love is not enough to build a stable life. Your husband is talented, yes. But he is emotionally tied to a past he should have outgrown. And your sister-in-law is the anchor. My brother stood so fast the attorney flinched. Say one more word about her. I lifted one hand. Sit down. He looked at me, breathing hard, but he sat. The bride's father smiled as if he had proven a point. You see? She controls him. I answered. No. He trusts me because I never used his future as a leash. That wiped the smile off his face. For the first time, I saw real anger. Do not lecture me in my house. The bride stepped forward. Then stop acting like money makes you moral. He turned on her. If you walk out of this family for them, you walk out with nothing. No trust. No apartment. No support. No calls to repair what you break. I will not bankroll disrespect. His wife whispered, Please don't do this. But he was too far gone. He had been challenged by the one person he thought would always return when money called her name. And as for you, he said, looking at me, I am prepared to offer you a generous amount of money if you remove yourself from their marriage. Quietly, permanently. Take it as repayment for whatever sacrifices you keep carrying like a crown. My brother looked like he might explode. The bride looked like something inside her had finally died. I only felt calm. You think I raised him so I could sell him back to the highest bidder? He said, I think everyone has a price. People like you usually discover yours faster. The room went silent. Even the attorney looked away. His wife made a small sound, not quite a sob, not quite a warning. The bride's voice shook, but her words did not. Keep your money. Keep the apartment. Keep everything. I would rather start my life with nothing than inherit comfort from a father who thinks kindness is weakness. Her father's face changed. For the first time, he looked afraid. Not of losing money, of losing ownership. I placed my phone on the coffee table and pressed play. First came the voice memo about teaching my brother scarcity, then the clip about poor people turning failure into storytelling. Then I played the recording from that very room, his own voice offering me money to disappear. His face drained. His wife covered her mouth. The attorney stood immediately. Richard, don't say another word. But Richard stepped toward me. You have no idea what you are doing. I stood too. I was not shaking anymore. No. You have no idea what the truth can do when people stop being afraid. He pointed toward the door and said, Get out. The bride looked at him one last time. That is the first honest thing you have said all week. We left without another argument. In the car, no one spoke for almost a minute. Then the bride wiped her eyes, looked straight ahead and said, Post it. My brother turned toward me, waiting. This time, I did not say no. I did not post it with rage. That mattered. I did not add dramatic music, insults, or exaggeration. I posted the place card, the wedding planner email, the voice memo, and the recording from the meeting with a statement so simple no one could twist it without revealing themselves. I wrote that I had attended my brother's wedding as the sister who raised him, that I had been publicly humiliated by the bride's father, that he had used his influence to destroy a job offer and freeze a community grant, and that when given a private chance to apologize, he offered me money to disappear from my brother's life. I also wrote that this was not about revenge for a ruined wedding. It was about what happens when powerful people believe the lives of working people are disposable. Then I closed my laptop and made coffee because my hands needed something ordinary to do while my life changed. By noon, the story had crossed Reddit. By evening, it was on TikTok and Instagram. People were sharing the place card with captions about class, cruelty, and the invisible work of older siblings. Teachers wrote about students who needed programs like mine. Nurses wrote about working double shifts for family. Older sisters, older brothers, cousins, grandparents, foster parents. People from every corner of the country told stories of raising someone quietly and being treated like their sacrifice did not count because it came without money or status. Some messages were only one sentence long, but they stayed with me. One woman wrote, "I raised my brother too, and no one ever saved me a seat." A man wrote, "My sister gave up everything for me. I am calling her tonight." Those messages did something to me that public support alone could not. They reminded me that humiliation tries to isolate you, but truth can return you to a community you did not know was waiting. The next day, Harrington and Vale released a statement saying the offer had been withdrawn due to outside pressure and that they were reviewing internal ethics procedures. They offered my brother the position back. He thanked them, then declined. He said he wanted to work somewhere that did not need public shame to remember integrity. That same afternoon, the foundation called me. They restored the grant review, apologized in writing, and within 1 week, the Second Chance Skills van received more donations than I had raised in 2 years. Strangers sent $20, $5, sometimes just a message saying, "Someone did this for me once." That broke me more than the insult ever had. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time, the work I had carried alone felt carried by many hands. The Ashford family did not recover so easily. The company board announced an internal review. A city partnership tied to one of their hotel projects was suspended. 2 nonprofit boards removed Richard from honorary positions. Business partners distanced themselves in the careful language rich people use when they are terrified of being photographed beside the wrong scandal. But the most expensive loss was not printed in a headline. His daughter never went back. She and my brother moved into a small apartment 3 blocks from mine, with secondhand furniture, uneven floors, and more peace than that mansion ever held. His wife left the estate a month later. I do not know if she left out of courage, shame, or exhaustion. Maybe all 3. The skills van opened at the end of the summer. On the first day, 17 teenagers showed up. We helped them build resumes, practice interviews, apply for GED classes, and learn how to tell their stories without apologizing for where they came from. My brother volunteered on Saturdays. His wife taught students how to write personal statements. A retired librarian offered free reading support. A local mechanic donated space for weekend workshops. What Richard tried to destroy became bigger than anything I could have built alone. And every time I watched a kid walk out standing a little taller, I thought about the man who had tried to bury this project because he thought hurting me would prove his power. 3 months after the wedding, Richard came to my apartment alone. No driver, no assistant, no polished smile. He stood at my door and said, "I was wrong." I believed he knew it. I also knew he had learned it too late. I did not invite him in. I said, "You thought money could buy silence, loyalty, and forgiveness. But it cannot buy character. It cannot buy family. And it cannot buy respect once you have taught the people closest to you that your love comes with conditions." His eyes lowered, and for the first time he looked smaller than his own shadow. I closed the door gently, not because I was weak, but because I was free. That is the lesson I hope people remember. Education is not only about degrees, expensive schools, or polished rooms. Real education is learning empathy, gratitude, accountability, and the courage to protect people who cannot always protect themselves. Valuable knowledge is knowing that a person's worth is not measured by their bank account, their clothes, or the table where someone chooses to seat them. My brother did not become successful because a rich man opened a door. He became successful because love kept a roof over him until he could build his own. And I did not win because the internet punished Richard. I won because I stopped letting powerful people define my dignity. The deepest revenge was not watching him lose contracts or titles. It was watching the thing he mocked become useful to other people. It was seeing shame turn into service, and pain turn into education. Money can buy attention. It can buy comfort. It can even buy fear for a while. But it can never buy the one thing Richard lost forever: the respect of the daughter who finally saw him clearly. So if you were in my place, would you stay quiet to keep the peace? Or would you stand up and let the truth cost whatever it had to cost?
My team and I are always trying to create fictional revenge stories that feel relatable, emotional, and meaningful to the audience. This story is made only for entertainment, education, and reflection. We hope viewers can take away a lesson about self-respect, healing, and the strength to move on without looking back.